Hello and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my good friend and compadre, Jim Stamm. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. We're getting back to our roots today. Getting another fellow fan on the show, and that feels good.
Absolutely. Joining us on this episode is our good friend, Rich Thompson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Not too
Excellent,
bad.
man. I mean, we're keeping our heads above water as best we can. And, you know something about that. You're one of my favorite type of people to talk to, Rich. You don't even know this. I love people that study the weather. And specifically the weather. Specifically the weather, not climate change, because that's kind of, that can get into like, it's almost a religion at some point. The weather itself, I love, because nobody approaches subjects with more humility than people that study the weather. Because they can tell you all these numbers that mean this thing, and at the end of it, they have to go, maybe.
I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that at all.
That sounds a lot like sports prognosticating, actually. So
it really does, and that's what I mean. When I have sports conversations with people that study the weather, it's usually a hell of a lot more reasonable than people that don't. So, like, it just works out great that Rich is here. Hey, first thing we're going to talk about is, and speaking of, why I like talking to weather people, they're used to being wrong on occasion too, and admitting it. I never in my wildest, wettest dreams saw Philadelphia going to the World Series this year. And, man, we've got Philly and Houston, the 106 and 56 Houston Astros taking on the 87 and 75 Philadelphia Phillies. Jim, thoughts? I mean, are you excited about this series at all? Did you see it coming?
No, I mean, that was not my pick. I think I went Astros and Braves. I think I ended up in it. So, I mean, for once, Major League Baseball looks smart, I guess, with this expanded playoff format. And, that's, I guess, their argument in a nutshell, right? Which is, hey, more teams in, more teams have a chance. But I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Phillies, guys. I do. I mean, I see a lot of people trying to talk themselves into a good series. The Astros, they're a machine.
I haven't picked Philly one time this entire playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll do it, but because the Phillies, they're playing hot right now. They've got a little bit of swagger going, good for them. But man, the Astros, where can you even find a weakness?
Yeah, I think even Verlander and Valdez and so forth will polish that hot streak pretty quickly. I think, unless Harper can just carry his back. You
have to think that's what Houston's hoping for, because their bullpen's wicked too. So I mean,
it is. The interesting thing about it is, I think with the Phillies, it comes down to like if Nola and Wheeler are on their games for their 4 starts, then they've got a legitimate chance. Like, I just don't see how they can get past having one of those guys not be excellent in their starts. Philly's got a puncher's chance because they've got big left-handed bats, and the Astros are pretty heavy on the right-handed relief pitching side of things and pitching in general. So, I mean, weirder things have happened, but it's just, man, you start looking at the Astros, and, everyone likes to talk about the Dodgers with, how they build things and how they do things, but the Astros, I mean, they're just as good, if not better. Yes. So,
absolutely. So, Rich, I mean, you've watched Houston beat up a lot of teams that live out your way.
Yes, I have.
For years now. So, I mean, what do you think of this matchup in particular? And, I mean, you don't have to give a prediction. I think I'll be able to understand just from listening to you.
Well, I'll give you a prediction first of all. I think Houston in 5. I mean, I think Philadelphia will get one win somewhere or something like that. But that's about it. But I just think Houston, as Jim said, there's really not a weakness there, honestly. Whether it be on the offensive side or pitching, there really isn't a weakness. I mean, it's just rather remarkable. I mean, as I've said, they're kind of the Astros, like the Dodgers, are a dangerous team that have enough money, but they can draft and develop to. And this is what you see. I mean, they have some free agents and so forth, but at the same time, they have some homegrown folks and so forth. It's just remarkable. So I mean,
imagine letting Correa walk.
Yeah.
And still having a team like they have. That's how you know the system's working. I mean, right there. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess I would say I have to go Houston. Although, again, I've been wrong about Philly the whole time. It's just, if anything, I think maybe I've learned a lesson from this, though. The line of when you should feel like adding a little bit to your team is worth it is officially lower than it was before they expanded these playoffs, because reality is Philly barely squeaked into this dance, and here they are. And if you're a team like the Pirates going into 2023 deciding you're going to try only so hard, I think Philly is kind of showing you why that's a mistake.
Yeah.
And Jim, I was just going to say, and that could be whether you're talking 2023 or 2024 if things, drag out a little bit longer. On the Pirates side of things is that it should change your mentality to some extent. Because, when the playoffs come around, momentum and just playing good matters in the playoffs, and that's just in sports in general.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
This is a team that, heading into 2023, they're close to getting some pretty elite talent from their prospect pool towards the end of the year, at least. I mean, now, if you've gotten this team in a position to be near or at or slightly above 500 by actually spending some money, and then you add in some of that prospect that you need, that comes in as lightning in a bottle towards the end of a season, you could have a very interesting end of your season, couldn't you?
Yes,
All I'm saying is, like, watching what Philly has done this year is instructive. And I'm not saying they've got a Bryce Harper, but I'm saying that the line to go, yes, let's try, should not be as high as the Pirates are making it. And that's why we're going to have to talk about free agents when we come back from this break, because I think that's the first place to start. All right, and we're back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim and Rich with me, Gary. And we're talking a little bit about free agency now, because after you talk about that World Series, you talk about how Philly kind of barely squeaked into the playoffs. You look at the Pirates roster, and we know there's obvious holes and things they could fill. Let's fill it. Let's talk about filling it a little bit. I'm going to start with the obvious catcher.
Why? Has that been an issue?
I think it's been an issue, yeah.
Seems like an odd place to start, Gary, but okay, I'll roll with it this time.
I think it's been an issue. But, I think there's a lot of options out there. Roberto Perez is the hot name because it's been mentioned on both sides of the aisle already as far as interest there. Recently, he brought up that he'd want to be signed for 2 years. I don't know about the two of you, but to me, that's probably not happening unless it's a club option for the second year, But, hey, that's multi-year technically, so maybe that's, something that could satisfy him. But for me, man, if I got to pick, I think I'm going for like an Omar Narvaez. I want a little bit of pop in that position. I think he can handle it well enough. I do understand you lose a little bit of that defensive acumen, but I think he's good enough back there that I'm not all that concerned about it.
Yeah.
That's my guy, I think. Omar Narvaez is the catcher I would target.
Rich, go ahead.
All right. I think for me, I'm going to set my faith into Endy and Davis coming up and actually being catchers the next couple of years. So I think Navarro's, he'd be a great get, but I don't think he's going to sign just a 2-year contract, and I don't think he'd be happy being a backup eventually. So I'm going to say Tucker Barnhart. You can sign him for a couple of years. He is a Gold Glove caliber defensive catcher.
Yeah.
Can hit a little bit.
I don't hate that at all.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be
I like that name.
He'd be cheap enough, I think. He'd sign for a couple of years. He'd be good experience-wise. So, Gold Glove catcher and so forth for help Endy and Davis. I think he'd actually be like a decent pickup and better than Perez because I think he'd be healthier also. Because Perez,
I really like that.
Kind
of embarrassed I didn't think of his name.
He was on my short list.
It doesn't
let me
have
say
to
this.
be catcher either, Jim. You can call out whatever you want here.
I guess let's just we're on catcher. I'll stick with it, and then we'll just roll. But I thought about Tucker Barnhart. I really like that suggestion. Another guy, just because I just thought, there's a little bit of bat there is a Gary Sanchez type guy. He's somebody that I can see being interesting. The Perez comments, it's funny how Roberto Perez, for being a guy that's not that big a name, people in Pittsburgh have a real differing opinion about him. You wouldn't think it would be such a lightning rod to the diehards, but it kind of has been.
I think a lot of people in this town, after selling themselves on Jacob Stallings being a star because of the way he played defensively here, and I mean this fan base and the people covering this team worked overtime convincing ourselves that Jacob Stallings was a star. You know what I mean? But to the point where people were pretty devastated when he got moved. So when somebody comes in and is visually better than him defensively, of course they're going to think that, this is somebody incredible, right? I mean, and he is a good catcher. He really is. Jacob Stallings fell off the face of the earth in Miami, but
he did.
He was a really good defender. I just think that's why people got excited about it and why they're allowing themselves to remain excited about it.
Yeah. Well, and I got, we all saw the comments about Perez that he's now expressed some interest about coming back, but he'd like a couple-year deal, which, I just said online, and I think people took it the wrong way, I was like, that's great. I'm sure he does want 2 years, and just I don't think he's going to get it. Now, I think people took that as that I didn't want him back. I actually do. If push comes to shove, but like Gary had mentioned earlier, was a year deal, club option. Throw some incentives in there. I mean, whatever you got to do to.
Yeah, you play 80 games, you get this amount. You play 100 games, you get this amount. Something like that.
Right. I mean, this is not hard.
Yeah, go nuts with it.
A second-year option type deal with some incentives built in for it. I think that's a win-win.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I love Rich loved the Barnhart suggestion. I thought Gary Sanchez, just because offensively there's a little something there that I would like to see from after seeing nothing all year. I mean, you get really desperate for some catching help on the offensive side of things if you can get it, and hopefully we won't be long there anyway with some of the stuff we've got coming. So
yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that almost considers two of them. You know, like you maybe get that Roberto Perez, but maybe you go and get like see if you can grab like an Austin Hedges too, something like that. You know, so you have a couple guys back there, and just we know they're going to manipulate Endy. But I also, as sold as I am on him, and I know he's going to start in AAA.
Yeah.
And I know that there's going to be a certain amount of time before, you know, they get the extra year. I'm not even going to care about Super 2 because until he shows me that I need to, I'm not going to get upset about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this could be a Matt Frazier situation for all you know. You know, he could really struggle next year, like after the break. I don't think he will. I'm not forecasting that, but he could. He's a prospect, you know, until he gets up here. So I don't want to sit here and put the weight of like, you better be ready to rock by July, kid, because you're the starter. Because all we got is this dude with an injury history.
Yeah, and a prospect to catcher. I mean, catcher is the toughest position to actually come up and actually do what you need to do in a big league roster. I mean, so that's a lot of pressure for Endy, Davis, even Sable if he comes up or whatever. You know, it's just like that's a lot.
Yeah, and let's be honest. And I was someone who wasn't doing this earlier, but let's pump the brakes on Davis because there's just been enough where he just hasn't had the time consistently to be healthy and play and develop. And like, just saw the other day, someone was talking about if he's not on the team in spring or coming out of spring training. I'm like, well, that's all changed a little bit for him. Even if he had a good spring, you know, it's just too early now.
That wasn't going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, I mean,
no
it was
matter
just,
what.
Right. It was just it was wishful thinking that if he had a great year and just exceeded all expectations, and it's been the opposite. Most not even his fault. So, yeah.
So I mean, for me, the next guy I would probably want to see them target. I know the popular name is Trey Mancini. I get that. But, man, I think I'd go Jose Abreu. First, I think I could get him a little cheaper than Mancini. And I think I could get him for less term. Which means if, by some chance, Mason Martin or Nunez or whoever decides to actually take hold of the first base position, I'm not going to be stuck.
Yeah.
So Jose Abreu is who I would target if I had my choice at first base.
Listen, I mean, age hasn't caught up with him yet.
I mean, he had a little power reduction last year, but he's still hitting doubles and he's still hitting for average. I think he's probably due about. He's going to get a pay decrease. Let's just say that. Okay. He was making almost $20 million. He's probably going to make about 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He'll be 37. So that starts to be a little bit of a concern, even though he hasn't shown much signs of, I mean, he's still just a really good hitter.
Right. 36, but still.
Yeah. And, just not playing as demanding of a position will help, and then he can DH some. And so, I think if this is before the DH, I probably am not that interested, just because I do think like it's wise with a guy like that to start. You know, I mean, let's help offset some of that for long seasons. You know, but I'd be fine with that. I'm going to throw out a name, and it's our old buddy Josh Bell. And let's just say, because a lot of the names at first base, a lot of guys have age on them. Like if you look at it, it's Abreu's 36, and Brandon Belt is 35, and Gurriel is 39, and
well, don't take all of Rich's suggestions here.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but they're all older.
Yeah, I get you, man.
So Josh Bell, let's say let's say he's just, the market's not real hot for him. And you could get him. Would you entertain it? I'm throwing it out there without even really having an opinion on it.
I'm going to wait to answer because I have a well-formed opinion on this.
Okay.
So. Go ahead, Rich. What do you think of that?
Okay, well, I agree with the Abreu suggestion. I think that'd be great. Someone I was thinking about a couple of possibilities. One thing, he's had a really good, I think very solid year this past season. Brandon Drury, he can play first base. He also played a little bit of third and play a bit of second. So I mean, that could be, and he'd probably come cheaper than Abreu, obviously. And he is younger; he's 30 years old, so that's an option for me. Then maybe, I'm not sure if he has like a team option or whatever, but what the heck? Let's go Miguel Sano.
Yeah, Miguel Sano has a club option.
Yeah.
Yes.
For like 14.
I'm not sure the Twins would pick that up or not.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I would think they might.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, because he is kind of like their big bopper.
That's true.
But let's circle back to the Josh Bell question.
Yeah,
that Jim
Rich,
posed,
you ran from that. Get on that. I want to get you on record.
I want to hear what you think about that idea of bringing Josh Bell back to the Pirates. Yeah.
Well, personally, I'd have no problem with Josh Bell. I mean, you'd have to get used to the fact, again, you're going to have the hot month and the cold month, and can you live with that for paying him, to be your first baseman? I mean, we went through it when he was here. When he's hot, I mean, there's few players that are better hitters, I think. But when he goes in the cold slump, he goes in the slump, it's not pretty at all. And I just think I don't think the fan base in general has the patience for that anymore, really. You know what I mean? So I think it'd be very frustrating.
He's going to get, 18, 19 million, somewhere in that, 20. You got to figure a little more if he comes back to Pittsburgh.
I want more consistency for that money.
My opinion on Josh Bell goes all the way back to my opinion on Starling Marte years and years ago. When your very best player is also one of your streakiest players, your team is not going to do well.
Nope.
I feel like Josh Bell would not be their very best player. O'Neal Cruz would be that, I would think, over time. But you're going to put Josh Bell in the heart of your order. And when the heart of your order goes hot or cold, it has a direct reflection on the rest of the offense.
Yes,
I don't want that cold moment to come up at the wrong time like it did for the Padres this year. And I think I personally would take a pass on it. However, I wouldn't get upset if they did it. Does that make sense?
It does. And, that's fair or not, I snuck in that little caveat of let's just say the market for him isn't as robust as he thought it might be for some of these very reasons we're talking about. I mean, obviously, everyone knows his limitations defensively and his propensity for ridiculous hot and cold streaks to where
he's actually kind of corrected a lot of that defense, though.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah, he's really picked up the sidearm motion.
Good.
From throwing. I didn't see it crop up much. I'm not going to say he's he's not one of the greater first basemen ever. He's not Mark Grace over there.
Yeah.
But he's okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's certainly not Yoshi.
Yeah, I mean, so, that's something that popped up. I was like, you know what? In that scenario, I would consider it. Guys, I'm still going to go back to Trey Mancini just simply because, the more I looked at it, he didn't have a good year. He did not. He has not had he's had a down year. He hasn't done much with the Astros. I do think this is going to be a situation where he will be a free agent because I think he has an option of $10, $11 million, something like that. I think he's going to be on the market. He's a guy that, again, should have a lot of baseball left in him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be surprised if you see some better years out of him the more he gets away from some of this cancer stuff that he had to go through. And that tends to have a little bit of a residual effect for a little while. So, I'm still back to him. And I think that because he's been down a little bit, that there's some room there, like to maybe
Yeah.
get him. Maybe there that it's a possibility. So that's still going to be my guy, and I think he'd be a popular player in Pittsburgh.
See, I think the first base
Yes, he would be.
discussion is more interesting than any of the other holes they have to fill, because it's the only one that I don't truly see anybody coming for. And I know that a lot of people love to just throw Henry Davis over there like it's going to just happen, snap of your fingers. And I know people like to throw Andy Rodriguez over there. I've even heard people suggest O'Neal Cruz go over there. I'm not doubting the athletic ability of these guys to go over there and learn first base and everything. I'm not. But I just don't see a prospect coming up with first base written all over him and star potential. If you can get yourself one, get yourself one. Because it's going to be a problem for a few years, I think. Even if Malcolm Nunez and Mason Martin make the league and learn to be productive over time, I don't see it being like an immediate, they come from AAA to the majors and just start hammering balls.
Well, the very fact that those are the names you can mention immediately tell you or tells me I'm not comfortable with that. Those names don't give me any comfort.
No.
I mean, their next best one in the system is Shackelford, and he's like 26 years old and double,
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So like right there tells me like, yeah, I mean if those are the names we go to, which they're obvious, that scares me or worries me.
Right. So I mean that's why I like the position though, because we can look longer term if we want to. Yeah. Like we don't have to be so pigeonholed into like, oh, this is happening. Because we don't know what's happening there, and I'm not sure they have a plan either. So,
no, well, we don't want to assume that. But that's the interesting dynamic about the two positions we've really talked about. This is going to turn into a 9-hour show, by the way, if we don't keep getting.
Yeah, you're right.
To these things better, but like catcher, we've got expectations of guys coming. First baseman, you don't really have that, and that's just a very interesting dynamic of two different ways to have to look at just those two positions on this team.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take it to outfield then, because outfield I think is something that I could probably be convinced they don't even have to fill. I could probably be convinced that they have enough internally that they need to just take a look at it. But man, something inside of me just cries for a veteran out there. Like, I feel like you're going to have Reynolds, I feel like you're going to have Sawinski, and I know there's other guys. But wouldn't it be nice to have somebody else like out there that you feel real solid about? Like even if it was just a season, like even if you went and got a Corey Dickerson again, that to me is a great upgrade to Ben Gamel. It's a pro who I think is a level above Ben Gamel, has the same kind of hustle, plays decent defense. That's somebody I think I would probably be interested in out there.
He's got you talk about, he Gamble to Dickerson, you're talking Dickerson 1.4 WAR, which, man, by the way, Mancini is 1.5, just to give you an example of like just comparative production.
Right.
So yeah, Gamble barely a 0.2 WAR. So yeah, I think that's a little bit of an upgrade. And Dickerson's, I think Dickerson's a spark plug kind of guy too.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that I like that you can just insert every once in a while, even if you just want to throw a change up at it. Like you just let's see what Corey's got today. He looked really good in batting practice. I think he's the type of guy that thrives on that kind of playing time right now, this stage of his career. And I thought he did a good job in St. Louis, and I really liked what he added to their scene. So, yeah, Corey Dickerson is somebody I wouldn't be opposed to bringing back to play the outfield. And Rich, I believe that makes your turn, and feel no obligation to continue with the outfield because, like I said, I could have my arm twisted pretty easily to say it's not necessary.
Well, I'll go use the outfield for more of my pipe dream sort of signings, I would guess, maybe. I would think it'd, be nice, either Nemo or Haniger.
I've heard Haniger's name quite a bit.
Because I would think Sawinski, he had his pros and cons and so forth. But, I mean, just have that veteran outfielder, that veteran presence, someone who's been in the playoffs, been in the playoff race, World Series, things like that. Both Nemo and Haniger are good, solid hitters, decent defensively. I mean, I think they could fill that role in left field or right field for several seasons, in case Sawinski would bomb or Mitchell doesn't amount to anything or whatever it might be. I think, those would be my two pie in the sky signings there for outfield. Otherwise,
I can tell you both of them are going to make a little over $14 million or so this year. I would assume. Yeah. And if I had to choose between the two of them, I would pick the right-handed bat, which would be Haniger. So
that's what I was going to say. We probably need to pay.
I like both of those, though.
Yeah, just pay attention. We should all, as we talk about this position, talk about just maybe some right-handed.
Yeah, exactly.
Type of bat. Because
the Nemo has good splits both sides, so that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah. I just expected him to get a lot of attention this offseason. I think I think he could cash in as one of those guys that maybe exceeds what they think he might get because of. Let's be honest. You start looking around in the outfield. There's not a ton of sexiness out there at the positions.
So what do you got, Jim? Do you got an outfield option, or do you want to go to a new position?
Yeah, no. Let's move on. Though it's interesting. The one thing I was going to say is, Gary, I almost had the same thought. The more I looked at outfield, and the more I thought about the Pirates, and maybe where I wanted them to go with things, I thought this might be the one position where I can be convinced that they might not need to have to do anything. I'd rather focus it elsewhere. So,
I mean, I'm okay in the middle infield too. So,
middle infield should be fine.
Well, there's something else I think is going to happen this year, and I don't know if everybody sees it coming, but I think we're going to see a healthy dose of Ji-Hwan Bae in center field and Brian Reynolds in left.
I could totally support that.
That being said, I think we're going to probably have an outfield consisting of Ji-Hwan Bae, Brian Reynolds, and Jack Sawinski more often than not.
I can live with that.
I can totally live with that. I got to see Bae out there in center field late in the season. I was at a game actually sitting right out there and just watching him and watching kind of how he played the position. I really liked what I saw. I thought he had good instincts. Thought obviously he's got speed. I would be completely comfortable with giving Brian Reynolds back in left field. I think it's a little easier on him. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I that's what I see happening anyway. Nobody's told me that. I just feel like Ji-Hwan Bae is going to probably prove himself worthy of a hell of a lot more at-bats than he's going to get while they want to give him to Castro too. And that pushes him into the outfield. And if you're going to play him in the outfield, let me just say, as loyal as fans are, you could watch him and Brian Reynolds play the outfield together for about 10 games before you were screaming to put Bae back in center and Reynolds in left field. He's that measurably better than Brian Reynolds out there. Yeah. As far as speed goes and as far as his closing ability.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, his arm's better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just, it's not even about, like, trying to make Brian happy anymore. It's more just, like, I think he knows baseball well enough to accept it, to be blunt. And we haven't even talked about Travis Swaggerty, who's also better than him in center field.
Well, yeah. I mean, Swaggerty, look, I mean, if there's one thing we know he can do, is he can field.
Yeah.
See, what we're doing here is talking ourselves out of getting an outfielder because there's so many options already.
If it means getting Bae in the lineup every day for the dynamic offensive potential, I'm all for it. Second base, center field.
Keenan Smith and Jigba coming back from injury.
Yeah, people forget about him.
Cal Mitchell somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of guys still that I don't know. I don't know if we've got room for it. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
as silly as that sounds on a 100-loss team, But like,
just because you want to find out some things.
Yeah, you got to look at the realities too. I mean, like,
personally,
there are certain things you want to see.
Yeah, personally, I want to see Bay play as much as he possibly can.
Yeah.
I really want to see that from the jump.
I agree.
And
he can be so dynamic, just so dynamic for that offense.
Yeah. Right.
So let's jump to the starting pitchers, and then we'll take a break, and we'll wrap up with relievers, because I think that's going to be fun. Because I've got a few that I've really been looking at, and I'm pretty excited to preview them here, because Jim always talks about getting some good relievers in here. So, I mean, the pitchers are easy. We're going to get Jacob deGrom and Chris Sale, right? I mean, that's what we're doing.
Big time.
So, I mean,
I already got my jerseys ordered.
Yeah, I mean, Jose Quintana's the big name. Everybody brings up all the time. It's easy. It feels good. Everybody's heard of him. Everybody thinks that's what's going to happen. I think for me, it's almost got to be a lefty. I really struggle. I really struggle shutting that part out. If it's not a lefty, I'm not really sure what they're doing. I don't like having all righty rotations. It always screws things up, if you ask me. And what about Drew Smyly? Drew Smyly, I think, is a guy that might be able to recapture something almost like Quintana did. I'd be happy with Quintana, too. I'm just throwing out an alternative. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
I could live with it. I mean, I do think, you want to focus on a lefty.
Matt Boyd's out there too. I like Matt Boyd. That could be a guy that could recapture something as well.
Yeah, it's funny. You look through the list and you're like, man, you could build a ex-Pirate rotation out of it too. You've got Trevor Williams and Jordan Lyles and Jamison Tyone and Chris Archer. I mean, we could get the whole band back together if we really wanted to. What about Jordan Lyles?
Oh boy, I like him. I'm not sure that Baltimore's going to let him go.
Yeah, probably not.
I actually think they've kind of almost got that hammered out already, at least the chatter that I've read, but certainly like Jordan Lyles. I think he definitely looked good this year. Rich, anybody on your mind?
Well, this is where I think the Pirates could actually spend for a decent contract, just because it would serve a role, somebody in that rotation in case Burrows and Priester, something happens to them and so forth. So I'm thinking, I like the left-handers. I'm thinking, probably the pipe dream would be Minea. I would think would be the pipe dream, but he's still young enough.
Even after his season this year, you still put him in that category?
I think so. I think it bounced back. I think he pitched better than it looked. I think for the most part. So I think he'd be worth it. Maybe he's only like 29, 30. Then maybe someone like Haney, or he'd bring back Tyler Anderson if you can. I think Anderson figured out something out with the slider, whatever he used this year. He figured something out. I mean, these left-handers. But I do agree with you. You need to have a left-hander in the rotation, if not two, just because we're so right-handed pitching-wise and so left-handed batting-wise. It's just, need to kind of even that all out.
Yeah, I mean, you got a few up there that you'd like to think about, but man, they're so shaky. Like James Paxton, I'm not a fan. I mean, like I understand like why his name comes up. He's a lefty, and he's never done anything that like kind of raised an eyebrow for me. He's a walking injury.
Yeah,
he's got the health concerns, and then we're talking about a position where if they are going to go out and spend some money, which that's always the question, but it can't be a big gamble, like right at that position.
Well, that's why you got to stay away from like a Wade Miley.
Yeah,
because I mean, that dude couldn't stay on the field to save his life. He's the Roberto Perez of the mound. I don't want that. And
right.
I mean, like somebody interesting that I'm not even sure if he's going to be available because, I mean, he does have a player option. Taijuan Walker. But if he if he doesn't take his player option, then he's going to be looking to get paid. And I mean like multi-years. But man, I think that's a dude that could probably do some damage in PNC Park. He's a good pitcher, keeps the ball down a lot. I like him. I've liked him since, Toronto got him a couple years ago. So that's somebody that I would be interested in. But again, right-handed doesn't really help that left-handed problem. So I think that's the biggest issue, really. The board is thin, and left-handers are even thinner.
Yeah.
You don't want to be signing a 43-year-old Rich Hill. You want like somebody that's still got a pulse. And I think Quintana is a guy that if you can get it done, get it done.
Yeah.
I get that.
I haven't seen any projections on what he could get. He certainly didn't hurt himself. He helped himself quite a bit. He might be one of those guys that if the market gets a little nuts, he could cash in a little bit and get an extra year or two out of somebody, and that puts the Pirates out of the picture.
That's what I see too. I see all those good intentions, and I see like, and all the nice words and all the, I love Oscar Marin. He's so awesome. If it weren't for him, and then, Quintana re-signs with the Cardinals for 3 years, $27 million. It's like, great.
Right. I mean, like, you just look at it and you go, well, good for him, but that's just somebody getting a little crazy with throwing some money around during the free agent period, which we see that. You're just like, you see a contract, you're like, we see a couple of those every year. We're just like, oh, man, this is getting nuts. He could be one of those guys.
Really could be. Tell you what, guys, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. Let's talk a little bit about relief pitchers, because that board is actually a little more entertaining than the starters, I think. All right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite subject, the bullpen. Before we start talking about it, I do want to remind people that the way the bullpen finished the season is not the way the bullpen is going to look in spring. There are a lot of players that were injured there towards the end. You are going to have a Bednar. You are probably going to have a Yeri De Los Santos. You are going to have a Colin Holderman. We should all remember Colin Holderman has a pretty lengthy injury history, though, even before the trade. So I'm not 100% sure you should count on that. Will Crow will probably be a component of it and back to form a little bit. I think there's room, though. I think we can all agree there. They need lefties. Manny Benuelos will probably be back. He did all right. But there's definitely room to sign some guys. And I think if Heath Hembry had worked out last year, their bullpen probably is even better last year than it was early on. It's not as though they didn't try to take a swing and get some experience in there. So anybody that you guys have been targeting or thinking about in particular? Because I have a few, but they might be a little bit of an overshot, to be honest with you. Because the ones I want are like measurably better than what we have.
Well, let's just do it. Go with let's hear it.
Taylor Rogers.
Dude.
There you go.
I hate you. That's my guy. That's my guy. That's who I want.
I'll be honest. I want a real lefty righty back of the bullpen setup. Mm-hmm. And I don't care which one is the closer, Rogers or Bednar. I really don't. I just want a lefty or a righty back there that I can use, the back of the bullpen. And to me, he's the best one out there. Zach Britton's pretty good. But but I personally think that Taylor Rogers has the experience I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That was my number. Well, that was my number one guy. I thought, man, if you could get him when he is on, and let's be honest, he had some ups and downs this year, I think, but when he is on, he is really good, and you can use him against lefties and righties, and aren't we still looking for that Tony Watson type guy? After all these years, to me, that's who I'd love to have again. Is that kind of a pitcher. I think he was as good as we know he was. I think people didn't appreciate him enough. Yeah.
I would agree with you there, and they should really appreciate him now. Every time they see O'Neal Cruz hit a home run. So, exactly. Rich, how about you, brother? Anybody on your mind? Anybody on your radar?
To kind of build off of Jim saying they're kind of the Tony Watson thing, I think, for me, maybe someone like David Price.
Okay.
Lefty, experience, so he'd be able to, kind of fill that Quintana void of the experienced veteran and so forth. I mean, he's been a starter, been a reliever. He pitched pretty good this year for the Dodgers in relief, left-handed, So I think he would be comfortable pitching in the back end, near the back end of the bullpen, wouldn't really freak him out or anything like that. I mean, and I think should come relatively inexpensive.
Do you think if they were to get David Price, that Huntington would show up at PNC wearing a Swami hat, saying that he accidentally predicted what was going to happen 10 years later when he said they were in on David Price? Or, I mean, I don't hate the idea.
Good clubhouse guy too.
Yeah, he is. He's a decent guy. For real.
And thinking I remember about the relievers in general, unless you're talking like a Mariano or something like that, from year to year, their performance can vary so dramatically. It's like Price pitched well this year, he could tank it next year. Same with Rogers. It's really, relievers obviously are very frustrating. But I think Price would be a reasonable left-hander. I mean, to have, I think he'd, do a very solid job. I would think. And again, just the experience factor would be a nice addition to the entire pitching staff, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
What about a Brad Hand?
Brad Hand.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a guy that I can see being signable, since that's something we might get into with expectations.
What's funny is I thought he was washed about 4 years ago. and he has really resurfaced in the last year and a half or so. He really found his slider again, and you're right, he's a weapon from the left side. I'm not sure if he feels, to me, that back of the bullpen role anymore.
Probably not.
You need a lefty, so it's not like I hate that idea. I like that. I would stay far away from Aroldis Chapman.
I was just going to mention him. Is there any scenario where you take a guy like that?
I think he destroyed his value with some of his shenanigans with the Yankees, to the point where I'll be shocked if he doesn't just get a 1-year show me deal for $5 million from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a team out there that loves to take people desperate for attention, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, I'll be honest, I'd be less shocked if they signed Chapman than I would be if they signed Taylor Rogers. Wow. So, I mean,
I can see that happening just because of the name. Everyone knows Aroldis Chapman. It'd be like, hey, look what we signed, we signed Aroldis Chapman. It's like,
hey, look, the velocity is still there. I mean, I watched him warming up. I went to one of the Yankees-Pirates games, and I watched him warming up, and there's no shortage of velocity. Now, control and effectiveness and wherever his brain is at, those are other things, but he was humming. So, but Gary, I think he's looked at as totally toxic right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you, man. It seems to me like he's pretty much burned. When you burn bridges with the Yankees, you tend to burn bridges with the league to a degree.
Yes, you do.
You know what I mean? It's almost like, well, if you can't make it work there, It's not, that's not true for everybody. Like, a lot of people, like, they go to New York and they're overwhelmed by the media and the environment and the situation, and some of them are so superstitious they don't want to cut their hair and shave. I mean, like, there's minute things that happen in New York that don't happen everywhere else, and I think we do discount that a lot. But Chapman's been there long enough that that's not what happened here. Yeah. This is just a dude that decided to be a knucklehead.
Yeah.
And
like, can we circle back 1 second? There was a name that we didn't mention, and I'll throw it out there because he was a Yankee. Is Rizzo? Any interest there?
I don't have any. I do think
he was still productive.
I do think he could murder the PNC Park Clemente wall. I've seen him do it. We've all seen him do it. I just think that Anthony Rizzo is a little bit beyond his years. And I kind of didn't like watching a lot of the bonehead plays he was making this year for the Yankees. That is not the first baseman I watched play for the Cubs at all. Mm-hmm. He looked awful. And making bad throws, bad decisions. Looked like he was just forcing it a little bit. And I don't know. Maybe getting in pinstripes didn't agree with him. But I didn't like it.
That's fair. Yeah.
He's got, his back isn't the greatest. He's not getting any younger. Again, it'd be interesting to see. Maybe we'll sit back and laugh at this because someone's dumb enough to give him a 5-year deal or something
well, you got to figure it's his last contract. So
right. That's true. Yeah.
He's going to get it from somebody, and he's not going to take a 1-year deal from a team like the Pirates. He might take one from, L.A. if Freddie Freeman breaks his leg. But he's not going to take it from the Pirates. And I'm pretty sure that he's the one that decided he wants to go out and explore free agency. So,
yeah, it was his call, and like you just mentioned, is he's looking for. This should be a financial influence contract for him. He's already got the ring, and this is his last big contract, so that's what he should be focused on.
All right, you guys love when I surprise you with topics, right? Because that's what I'm going to do. We're gonna. We've talked about every free agent possibility here. That's what we wanted to do, a free agent show today. So, we're usually a little bit deeper than this, but this time I just wanted to keep it topical and surface. This is what we're interested in. Let's do a couple things real quick while we're on free agency. What the hell happens with Aaron Judge? I mean, that is the free agent, right? Or is Correa joining that? He's probably going to be out there again, too. What happens with Aaron Judge? Do the Yankees sign him? How many people really could sign him?
Not
the
many,
Mets, the Red Sox, the Yankees,
Dodgers,
the Dodgers.
That's about it.
The name that I keep seeing is I keep seeing is the Giants, right? That the Giants are
really
for Aaron Judge. I keep seeing his name linked with the Giants, and that they are going to pony up. So
they might. They love their stars out there, and they love their veterans, and they're not afraid to play older guys. They don't care.
Yeah, he's 31, and I mean, look, he's a big guy, and he's going to hit for a while. But we're talking like, I mean, I want to know what type of length of deal he wants. Like, are we talking like 8 years, 10 years? Like, is he going to demand that?
Well, think about what Miguel Cabrera did. There's a reason he's playing as Methuselah. I mean, in all sincerity, he's going to ask for a long contract because he can get it.
He is.
If somebody wants him, they're going to give it to him. He's not going to be a guy that goes 3 different places to finish his career.
Nope.
So I think you're looking at the Cubs because they're flush with cash because they just emptied everything out.
I actually heard Rizzo back to the Cubs too, so
I could see
they got money to burn. They got money to burn.
I could see that. And then San Francisco, and the Yankees. And man, I'm sorry, I could see the Red Sox just to stick it to the Yankees. In all sincerity, they can afford it because they're
That's true. That's
they're
a good
moving
one.
on from some people, and I think he fits into what they need desperately. And with that monster,
Oh
come
yeah.
on, you can't tell me that can't be appealing to him. Like to be just popping balls over that monster or off that monster. I mean, like, I think that could happen, and boy, that would stab New York right in the heart. It really would.
It brings back memories of what they used to do to each other, right? When it came down to the Johnny Damons of the world and signing guys out from one another.
Well, you figure JD Martinez is on his way out, so there's a spot right there, DH outfield. And I'm just saying it's a very Boston thing to do, isn't it?
Yes, it would be. Yes.
And they would love nothing more than to come out of the basement and take the division next year. They've done that multiple times.
Yes, they have.
Well, the Giants angle. Apparently, he's from Northern California, grew up a Giants fan. The Giants have a ton of money coming off the books. His family still lives in California. I think people are connecting a lot of natural dots, but the report is that they are going to be willing to spend and not be outbid for him. So
wow, yeah.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
All right, hey, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And one other thing I wanted to just mention real quick is today we're recording on Thursday. Major League Baseball and the Players Association had their first meeting to collectively bargain the minor leaguers. And I don't know where this is going to go. I don't have any news to report. I'm just saying it's starting. And we're a long way from the actual CBA that comes up here, after 2027. But this is going to kind of educate us on how that's going to go a little bit. So just be keeping an eye on this. I don't want you to be caught by surprise when you hear us talk about it later. So just pay attention to that story as well. And we may even get Amy Dash on to talk about that a little bit. She's, she covers law in sports exclusively. And I'd love to get her take on what she thinks this is going to turn out like. So we're going to try to get her on here pretty soon as well. Cool. So any closing shots from either of you? Anybody you left off your list that you think you should have brought up?
No, man. I think the one thing I want to emphasize here is, because I know it's going to happen after the show airs, here come the moron comments. They're not going to sign anybody, and I don't know what. Listen. This is just exploratory. This is people we think are possibilities. Some of them are pie in the sky. Some of them are realistic. It's just a discussion, man. Relax.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the opening. Before we get there, just like the opening to MST3K, Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they say, if you're worried about how he eats and breathes, just relax. It's just a show.
Yeah,
just calm down.
I know, Gary. It's coming, and
I know it's coming. I actually meant to bring it up, but you guys got another minute? Because honestly, that's another thing that we didn't really discuss. What sucks most about what the Pirates have done to this fan base is they've taken this part of the season, this part of the baseball fan experience that should be fun and should be about dreaming, and they've taken it away from us. When I bring up a name like when Jim brings up somebody like Brad Hand, and I think he'll cost less than the one I suggested, mind you, Taylor Rogers, but when he brings up a guy like Brad Hand, the first thing that happens in my head, whether I want it to or not, it's like a rat to a rat trap, is nope, too much. It's the first thing that happens. It's nope, too much. Nope, too much. There's a reason that we go, oh, we need a lefty, and I just keep scrolling past Clayton Kershaw. Like
Yeah.
we shouldn't be afraid to bring up anybody we want. And I'll be honest, we're not afraid of it because like somebody from the team's going to hear. We're afraid of it because people act like a-holes on social media because you're just talking about something.
Exactly. We don't want to be
all
mocked.
this is suggestions and fun. Yeah. Have the fun part of the game. I know Bob Nutting is a cheap son of a bitch. I don't need reminded of it. I know that. I know what I'm asking for is not. Every once in a while, I just want to pretend I'm following a normal freaking baseball team and just say what I think they should do to make the team better.
Exactly.
And not worry about all the other BS that I have to worry about 328 days of the year.
Well, poor Rich out there in California. He gets to see all these, champagne and caviar dream teams out there just doing whatever they want, and then he gets to log on to Twitter hell with the Pirates, and that's maybe we shouldn't complain as much, Gary, because Rich really has
entertaining. Please, I love it. It's entertaining. It's a very vibrant community we have.
Yes,
very vibrant.
Well, Rich is about to watch Wolf of Wall Street play out for San Diego pretty soon here. I mean, like. They're going to go rags to riches or riches to rags real quick here, I think.
Yes, they are. They took their shot and failed. They took the shot. Give them credit for it. Went way beyond their means.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. What's the rumble out there? Is Manny Machado opting out?
From what I gather, I think he just might. I mean, because he's still young enough to get
That's what I was thinking too.
Contract.
That's what I was thinking
how much is going to go around in San Diego? Soto, Tatis, Machado. How much money do they have to go around? He might go for greener pastures. I really do think he will.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Rich, and I think, man, that's such a shame because they've tried so friggin' hard. You Darvish might be gone too. I mean, like, it's not as though they're not trying to keep that team together, but ouch.
Yeah, Machado to me is, man, he's just so good. Like he really is such a special ball player, and I mean, it'd be tempting, right? I mean, he can get what he wants. He can ask for whatever. He can go where he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, it's going to be an interesting off season, even if not here entirely. I think it's fun to keep your eye on things like that because every team operates differently, and I think for the second time now, I'm going to try to end the show.
Man!
Thank you for joining us, Rich. For real, it was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All the way from Cali out there, and good luck with fire season next time it crops up out there. Because
thank you.
I always see you covering that on Twitter, and it's just sad that that's part of your job. I hope that.
Yeah, it is, but also
out.
As I say, it's the best job of the National Weather Service, though, being an insect meteorologist. It really is. So I can't complain at all.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you being on. And Jim, hope you're feeling better from last week. I hope Ben is feeling okay. And
yeah, man, we're good. The yuck is out of the house, and Ben's got a couple goals in hockey in these last few games. So I'm a happy guy right now. So
there you go. And hey, I'm going to end the show personally. Sorry, just my son turned 24 today, and I feel especially old, but also very proud. Josh, you've accomplished some stuff by the age of 24 that a lot of people haven't by the time they're 40. So you should be very proud of yourself, and just know that Dad is. And without further ado, Ben, take it away.
Get your butt!